Okay. So, hope you guys are able to see my PPT. I think this is the day 6 one that I have shared with you. Okay. So today we are going to discuss about activities. So as I told you, from today you're going to learn how to process your data, store, retrieve, validate. So all the Pega, so how do we do functions, methods, all this stuff is going to come into your picture. So before I tell you what is an activity, I have to tell you one thing. So activities are just like algorithms, guys. We write them step by step. Okay? So just like let's say I want to add two numbers. So what will I do? First I'll declare the two numbers, then I'll initialize the values for the numbers, then I'll sum of them. So step by step like an algorithm, we do activities. It's just like step by step you execute and you achieve something. Okay? And you can compare activities to your C++ or C or Java functions and methods. So just like how functions and methods are there in your other technologies or tools, same is the case in Pega. Activity is nothing but calling a function or calling a method here. Okay? So activities can call either a function or a method and they try to process the data which is relevant to your work object. Okay? Let's see in detail. So what activities can do? They can send an email, they can access the database to retrieve the data, store the data, they can process the data, they can validate the data, they can move your work object from one person to another person. Okay? They can do many things. They can do integration like soup, rest and all. So everything you can say activities like a heart of the application. Most of the processing can be done in activities. Now, activities automate the processing. They contain a sequence of steps. As I told you, it's just like an algorithm. Sequence, step by step will be working on the activities. And every step can call a method or a function. Okay? So you'll be calling either a method or a function and you'll be handling the activities. Then, every activity will have some components. We'll discuss in detail in my screen. Okay? Let me move on to my screen. Okay. Let's create an activity. Then we'll discuss about the various components on it. Activities come under technical category. So you have been working with multiple categories till there is like user interface, data model, process, and so on. So now you're going to interact with technical category. An activity name should be like a verb. They should describe the action that you are doing. Okay. So let me say this as learning activities. Okay. And I'm putting in my implementation class in MMT toolset in 0101 version. Okay. Guys, please do create an activity like this and it comes under technical category. And when you're creating an activity, you always observe there's a warning like this. Pega suggests not to use activities as much as possible and they suggest you to go for any other alternatives. Like they have many other components in Pega called as data transforms or declarative rules or decision rules or use flows or there are many other alternative rules in Pega. So Pega suggests you if there is something that you're doing in an activity which can be done by any of these rules, please avoid using activities. Okay. But activity can call nearly, I guess, like 50 to 70 functions. Okay. Not all the rules that are available in Pega can do this. So maybe if you're using some functionality in this activity which can be done by this, they say please avoid using activities. Because activities, like from processing point of view, they are an overhead. They take more time for processing. So they suggest not to use activities as much as possible. Okay. So this is the warning you see. Okay. Guys, if somebody just joined, please mute it. Okay. So now create and open. So you'll see this warning all the time, so don't worry about it. So they're saying here use alternatives like flows, data transforms, declaratives, etc., etc. Okay. So this is how an activity looks like. Always see This is a rule called as activity. The name of the rule is learning activities. This is in this class and this is the rule set. Okay. So if you're working in real time, somebody asks you, hey, in which class it is there? Just tell them, hey, this is in Go only MMT work etiquette. In which rule set? MMT 0101 version. Okay. And as I told you, for every requirement, for every new enhancement, for every new release, you get new versions. Okay. You might be working in 02, your friend might be working in 03. So we have dedicated versions. So you always create tools and those versions only. Now, coming to the activity. The activity has some tabs like this: steps, parameters, pages and classes, security, specifications, and history. Let's talk about each one of the things available here. Label. Label is just like your go-to label in a C language. What is the purpose of go-to? Jumping from one point to another point. So that is the case here. So I'm in step 1. I want to jump to step 10 without executing 2, 3, 4 and so on. I use label. So I give a label in step 10 saying that something like end or something, anything. You define your label. And in step 1 you say go to end. So 1 to 10 you can jump. Clear? So jumping from one point to another point we use labels. And always remember only forward jumpings are possible, backward jumpings are not possible. Okay. Now, coming to the loop. So you have for loop, while loop, do while loop in Java, right? Same is the case in Pega. We have for loop and we have few other loops like looping on a page, page list, value group. So you have the property type modes, right? Single value, multi-valued. Under single valued you had value, value list, value group. Under multi-valued you have page, page list, page group. So looping on those. And normal for loop is what we have under loops. Okay. Now coming to the when logic, suppose this is a method, right? So if you have a precondition before executing the method, like a if logic, if this condition is true, get inside the body and execute the method. So it is like a if logic. If condition is true, so you can put your logic here, the condition here. If true, what do you want to do? You want to continue or skip the step or whatever it is. If false, what do you want to do? So you can write down your logic here. So this is called as precondition. Means before executing the method, I'll check my condition. And if my condition is true, maybe I'll execute it or may not be, I'll skip it. So based on my logic, it will work. But this is called as precondition because before execution of my method, this condition will execute. Okay. Then, and even when you're writing your logics here, you can open up the Pega's library by clicking on this icon and you can find many functions. Okay, you can tell many functions here. You can just pick the function of your choice and you can work on it. Let's say, for example, I want to find the length of a string. I can search like this length. Many length functions. Based on your requirement, just mouse over and see what is your requirement. You can just choose your function. Similarly, I want current date and time. I can take. Is it date time stamp, or what do you want? Just take your choice. Okay? So you can use your function library as well to frame your conditions. Then coming to the methods. Okay? So these are your methods in Pega. Okay? So you can create a new function in Pega, but you cannot create a new method. Methods are completely inbuilt, available from the Pega libraries. Okay. So these are called as methods. You have, I guess, nearly 70 or some rough 70, I guess, they are methods. Okay. Not everything is used on day-to-day basis. There are some frequently used ones, which we will be discussing. Okay. So what do you do with the method? What do you do in Java? You call a method, you pass some parameters, you expect some output. Same is the case here. Okay. Let's say, let me take a method. Let me take something called as page new. So here's the method. Expand it. Method is expecting some parameters. So I'm calling the method I'll be passing some parameters and I'll get the output. That's how methods work, just like in Java. Call it, push inputs, get outputs. Okay? Since step page, yeah. See, every method executes on the data which is present on the page mentioned here. So there are so many pages in the clipboard. How will Pega identify on which page this method has to be executed? Maybe you're writing a method to identify an employee whose technology is Pega. So how will Pega know on which page I have to run this method, as there are many pages on the clipboard? So you have to specify the page name here. Then that method will execute on the page. Okay? So step page is very important. What happens if I don't give a step page? If you do not give a step page, Pega automatically takes the primary page. Means whoever is calling you, that calling rule will have some page context. So that page, it will take it by default. Okay? Then, description, it's optional. So you have to write a one-line description of what you are trying to achieve in this step. The reason is, tomorrow you end up writing like 20 to 30 steps in this activity. And after 1 year, if I get a defect, it's very difficult for me to even recollect what I'm doing in this step. So it's good if you write a description, so that rather than opening each and every step and expanding and seeing what I'm doing in a particular step, looking at the description itself, I can understand, Asha, okay, I'm creating a page here. Okay, I'm setting some values here. Like that, you can just scroll up, scroll down, looking at the descriptions. It's always good, a best practice to write descriptions. Then, jump. Just like you have a precondition before executing a method, we also have a post condition after executing a method. So after the execution of the method, based on the output, do you want to continue with step 2 or do you want to jump to step 10? You can put your condition here. Put your condition here. If true, what do you want to do? If false, what do you want to do? You can define them here. Okay. Let's say, for example, in this particular step, you are trying to find out like whether your user ID exists or not. The person is trying to log in and checking his user ID and password. So in step 1, I'm checking his user ID. Let's say the user ID does not exist. In step 2, I'm checking his password. Okay. So when the user ID does not exist, there's no point in checking for the password, right? So in the transition, in the jump, you can write down a condition. If user ID exists, continue with the next step. If false, jump to some step 10, step 20, anything of your choice. Okay? So like that. So based on the output of a particular step, you want to decide whether you want to go to the next immediate step, or you want to jump, or you want to exit out of the activity. You have to take a decision in the jump. Similarly, what if some exception comes? Maybe some runtime exception, Java index out of bounds or something. What if some exception comes? Where do you want to jump? You give some step label, this one label. Okay, I need to jump to that particular step. So why do you use this? This is basically used for error handling. Let's say I'm querying a database. Due to some reason, I got some index out of bounds exception or something. Okay. So when I say, whenever there's an exception, jump to step label, what will I do there? I'll try to capture the error message, like what error has occurred, for which particular employee or which particular transaction the error occurred. I'll try to capture all the details and maybe I'll try to log it. Or maybe I'll try to put it in a database. Or maybe I'll try to send it as an email to the respective developers group. Okay. So this is all used for error handling in Pega. So on exception, what do you want to do? You jump to a step, capture the exception, and do your business logic. Maybe you log it or you send an email, whatever it is. Okay. So that is for exception handling. So this is about it. Step, and you can keep on adding steps like this, and they execute in a sequence. Take a couple of minutes. Try to recollect what I told about labels, loops, whens, methods, step pages, description, and jump. And do let me know if you have any queries. And guys, like once you're done with the activities, I'll suggest you some blogs as well, so that you can go through those blogs and They'll be helpful for you for your hands-on as well. Okay, that someone just okay. So if you think we are good, let's move on. Okay. I also want to show you something over here. Guys, if true, what do you want to do? There's multiple options here. And from interview point of view, the most frequently asked question is about the various methods in the activities. They ask you about the OBJ and RDB methods we'll be discussing in the next classes. And another expected question from interview point of view is about this if true and if false options. So they ask you what are the various options available in if true and if false. You see some things, right, like continuance, skip, jump, skip step, exit iteration, exit activity. So they expect you to tell about the 6 options in detail. So what is continue once? Continue once means either you continue with the current step or continue with the multiple when conditions available here. So you can put multiple whens here. Okay. So continue whens means continue with the when conditions. If no when conditions are available, continue with the step execution. Skip whens means skip the further when conditions. Like if the first when condition is true, then I don't want to execute the rest of the when conditions. So skip whens means skip the when conditions. Jump to later step means you have to give a label and you want to jump from step 1 to step n. Skip step means current step will skip, the immediate next step will execute. Exit iteration means you are inside a loop and you want to come out of the loop. Exit iteration. Exit activity, none of the steps in the activity will execute, will come out of the activity itself. Same is the case in if false. Okay. So from interview point of view, this is important because people try to focus on this. Please take a minute, try to have a recap and let me know if you have any queries. Okay. Now, moving to the parameters tab. So just like how a function or a method will have parameters, activities in Pega are very similar to that, guys. So activity, just take activity like a function. Okay. So someone can call a function, right? Maybe a flow can call it, maybe a section can call it, maybe a flow action can call it. So any of these tools can call an activity. So whenever you call a function, what do you send? Sometimes you send input, sometimes you may not. So you get, there's a function to get current date time. Do you send any inputs? No, right? Whereas there's a function called as length. Do you send inputs? Yes. You send a string as input, it gives you the length of a particular string. So similarly, activities may or may not have parameters. So if you define a parameter, it means that whenever somebody is calling me, I expect the parameters from them. Okay? And sometimes you may not need parameters. So just like I told the example of current date time. Okay? So if you have any parameters, you can declare your parameters here. Just give the name of the parameter, say the data type, is it required or not, and is it input or output. See, not everything is an input parameter. Some things are outputs. So you have to declare input and output. Similarly, local variables. What is the difference between a local variable and a parameter? Just like in Java. See, local variables life and scope is very less. So in Pega, if you declare something as a local variable, you can use it only within that activity. If you declare something as a parameter, you can use it across activities. Like my parameter can be passed to my child activity, to that child, and so on to my grandchildren. If it's a parameter. If it's a local variable, my variable is only to me. I can't pass it to my children. Okay? Then, pages and classes. If you're using any page, you have to declare what is the page name and which class properties it can hold. As I told you, whenever you're using a method, you have to give a step page because Pega will don't know on which page this method should execute. Similarly, when you're giving a page, remember page is a property, multi-valued property, right? Page, pages, page group. So when I say it's a property, it should belong to some class, right? So you have to define here, hey, this is my page name. It can hold the properties of this class only. So the declaration have to be done here. Guys, it might be a bit confusing now, but when you start working, you'll feel it like a bit flexible. Security. So you always have some checkboxes here and privileges. Allow direct invocation from client or service names. If you enable this, you cannot call this from the UI if this is enabled. Or maybe you cannot call it in a service if this is enabled. So it is usually disabled when you want to call it from a UI or a service rule. Similarly, it requires authentication to run. If this is enabled, whoever is calling it, this activity tries to authenticate their credentials. Let's say this activity is being called in a SOAP service or a REST service or an agent background process. So this activity will try to check the credentials of the requested session. So if the credentials are not authorized, they can't trigger this activity. So usually when you expose the activities as a services to other parties, you usually use this. Otherwise, you can disable this. Then privileges. If you give a privilege here, only operators with that privilege can execute this rule. Others cannot execute it. Usage. Based on the place from where you are calling it, you have to change it. Let's say I am calling this activity from a flow. I'll put it as utility. I'm calling this in a section. I'll put it as activity. I'm calling this in a connect SOAP. I'll put it as rule connect. Okay. Maybe I'm calling it in a declarative trigger. I'm calling it in an email, notify. So based on the place from where you call it, you have to change the type of the activity. Okay. You'll be learning it as we keep moving with the next classes. Specifications, not much required for you. It's a specification document. History, every rule trigger has a history. Like when was it created? When was it last updated? So let's say, for example, suddenly your code started working something wrong. Okay, you were thinking, hey, it was working good till yesterday. What happened suddenly? So in that case, you can just come to the history and see when was it last updated by and by whom it was updated. Okay. If you view full history, you can see the full history. From day one it is created till today who updated, full history you can see. Okay. And it's always a good practice to write down the description and the usage. Means, what is the use of this activity? Where are you going to use it? The reason is you create some activity and you leave the commit somewhere, somebody will come. They don't understand that, why did they create this activity, but they will not understand, right? It's always good to write down the usage. Then they will understand, Asha, okay, this was created for this purpose. Okay? So it's always good to maintain the description and usage. Okay? Just take a minute. Try to understand what we have discussed. Give me a minute, I'll be back again. Now let's start learning some methods and activities, most frequently used methods. Okay? Let's start with few page methods. Let's say, for example, I'm pulling so your application is about flight, bus and hotel bookings, right? Let's say, for example, I'm trying to book a hotel. Okay? I've given the location as Hyderabad. Okay, and I'm trying to fetch all the hotels from the database. So, if you remember when I told you clipboard, I told you that clipboard is the middle layer between the application and the database. If you want to insert some data into the database, you should first put it onto the clipboard, then to the databases. If you want to retrieve some data, first you have to retrieve it onto the clipboard, then you can display in the Pega UI. Okay. Now in my scenario, I'll give the hotel name. Sorry, I'll give the location name. I want to retrieve all the list of hotels available in that location. Okay. Very good. You will write down a query. You will fetch the results. Where are you going to place it? I need a clipboard page. Because anything, insertion or retrieval, I need a clipboard page. So, first of all, I need to create a page and then I can put my data on it. So, I need to create a page. How do I create a page? Here. This is a method to create a page. Page new. You got my requirement, right? So, I'm trying to retrieve some data from the database and display it on the UI. So, before I display it on the UI, I have to make sure that the data is on the clipboard. So, I need a page. I'm creating a page. Let me name it as AVL Hotels, Available Hotels. Is my page name. Okay. Now, I try to save it. Oh, what happens when I try to save it? Just always try to understand the errors. Okay. Step page. Pages must be defined on Pages and Classes tab. Step page. Step page. Okay. This page has to be defined in Pages and Classes. So copy it. Go to Pages and Classes. Define it. So to whichever class you define here, this page can store only the columns or properties of that class only. Let's say you are trying to put some hotels information, right? So what properties or columns you expect? Hotel name, AC or non-AC, number of rooms, location, something like that. So where are these properties or columns available? In which class they are available? Are they available in your etiquette class? Are they available in your data dash hotels class? Or whatever it is. Okay. Let me take, okay. So I remember these properties will be in my hotels class only. I don't think they'll be in etiquette class. See my hotel class. Okay. So hotel ID, hotel name and all these things are available in hotel class. I don't find these properties in my, I don't think so. If I find it, well and good. These properties are not available here, right? So, if you want to use the properties which are in this class, then you have to map it to that class only. So, most of the people are confused to which class I have to define here. Always just think, which class holds these columns? Hotels class, okay, hotels class. Very simple. That's it. Save it. Very good. Okay, there's always a warning because we are using activities. Pega always says you, please don't use activities. Use anything alternative. Okay. Please do it quickly. Here, when I saved, you know what happened? It's actually compile time. So whenever you give a save, it's called as compiling the code. You're compiling the code and you're executing the code, right? So when you do a save, it's actually compilation. So you say, hey, I'm getting compile time error. Compile time is nothing but when you try to save it, there's a compilation. Once you're done with this, now you have to execute your code. So compilation is an execution. So how do you execute it? Go to actions, say run. Okay. Now, hit on trace, sorry, hit on run again. I'll teach you tracer later. Hit on run. So your code gets executed. Okay. Now go to the clipboard. You should find a page called as available hotels. You can either click on the clipboard at the bottom or you can click on the clipboard icon here. So I'm clicking on the clipboard icon here. Okay. So you'll find your page in alphabetical order. So mine is A. So AVL Hotels is the top. Here is my new page created. Please do check whether you have your pages created. Okay. Hope everybody got their pages created. Now, so your page is created. Now you can put some data on it, right? I'll teach you database methods later. Let's move ahead with the page methods and property methods. Now I have a page. So I want to put some values on it. Maybe like manually I want to put my hotel name, hotel ID, type, this and that. Okay. So how do you put properties on it or values on it? So you have to use property set. Property set is used to set some values into another property. Okay. So give property set and expand it. It will ask you what are your properties. Properties are always referenced with a dot. See, when you are mapping in a section also you are saying dot. Similarly in activity, wherever properties are different, you reference with a dot. Dot means current class. Just like how you do it in Java. Class name dot variable name. Same thing. Dot. Okay. So I want to give, acha, did you see this? When I said dot, I didn't find any of the hotel properties. And you see the class name, work-etiquette. Okay. But actually I wanted to map hotel class properties, right? So what should I do? I should give my step page. So based on your step page, the context of your step changes. Now see, when I say dot, what will happen? I get all hotel properties. See the class name? Hotels. So that's how the context of your step changes based on your step page. So I'll take hotel ID, then hotel name, then number of rooms available, and so on. Just give whatever you want to give. Okay. Save your changes, which is nothing but compilation. Then actions run. That is execution. Please do this. Make sure you give the step page. Suresh, I just saw a question about step pages. So step page is nothing but it defines the context of your step. Means this method will execute on the data which is present on a particular page. Okay, that's the use of a step page. Okay. I hope everybody did a compilation and execution. Okay. Then go to the clipboard. I see most of the people clicking on the first one and saying I'm not getting the output. Please, you have to click on done twice and then you have to go to the clipboard. I also see some people just writing the code, saving it, directly going to the clipboard and saying, hey, I'm not getting the data. If you don't execute it, how you will get the data? So please make sure you save it, you execute it, then you see the clipboard. Okay, here is my clipboard. Data, hotel ID, hotel name, number of rooms available. Okay, hope you are done. So this is how you work with property set method, setting a value to a variable. See, you need to just hard code it. You can even get it from another property. I mean, like you can also refer another property here, or maybe you can even concatenate two strings, or you can write an expression. You can call a function. Okay, anything you can do on the right hand side. Not simply hard coding a value. Can be a function, can be another property, can be concatenation, can be expression, can be anything. Okay. No. What if I want to use a function here? There's always an expression builder on the corner of your step, right? You can use that expression builder to get your functions. We'll use the functions in the later classes. Just learn the basics for now. Let's set a property set. Now what next? I want to set a error message on my page. Let's say I have a condition. What is my condition? If the number of rooms available are let's say, just a condition, okay? If the number of rooms available are less than 40, I'll just, less than 0. Okay, let me give it as 0. If it is less than or equal to 0, I want to throw an error message saying, please select another hotel. Okay, just for example. So first I have to put a condition, right? So in the condition, I'll put, what is this property? Always make sure you give the step page. If you don't give the step page, how will Pega know in which page this property is there? So make sure always you give the step page. Then write down here, if number of rooms available is less than or equals to 0, if true, continue once. If false, skip the step. Don't execute the step. Okay. Now say submit. Now what is my logic? I want to set an error message. What is the method to set an error message? You can use two methods, either page set messages or property set messages. I'll tell you the difference. Okay. Just expand it. Give you message. Please select another hotel. Rooms not available in the current selection. In double quotes. Okay. Remove the category. Why I'm asking you to remove the categories. Message is also a rule in Pega. Oh, sorry. Message should be here. Message is also a rule in Pega. They expect you to create a rule called as message and you then need to plug in the message rule here. So in that case, you have to give the category. But if you are hard coding your message like this, you should not give category. Okay. So just remove it and put it like this. Your page name and your message. And this is your condition. Excuse me. If you're done with this, please compile your code and execute your code. Nothing but save and done. Click on Run twice, then click on the clipboard icon available here. Okay, you will find the page in red color because it has an error message on it. Only when there is an error, it will turn into red color. See this? Okay. So I told you there are two methods to set error messages, right? Page set messages and property set messages. What is the difference between these two means? Page set messages means the error will display at the top of a page when you display it in a section or flow action. Not at clipboard level, okay? Clipboard level you don't see much difference. Property set messages means the error will display just above your current field, means just above your current text box when you use the property set messages. So display wise it's different. That's it. So the task for you people is to try property set messages. Please try using property set messages. Now, let's say for example, I want to nullify a property. Let's say initially I have set some variables, okay, thinking that this hotel is available. Now the person has changed the hotel name. Initially he selected task, so he selected a room. So I have mapped some properties saying that for this particular person, this room should be booked. Just like how it's usually you try to book a movie ticket, you select some seats, suddenly you don't book it. The seats are blocked, right? So other person can't book it until you release it. So similarly, I selected a hotel and I selected a room. Suddenly I changed my hotel name and the location. I have to release the rooms that I have, the code has to release the room that I have selected, right? So releasing is nothing but nullifying those properties. So how do you nullify it? Like this. So you have to go property remove. Okay, what's your step page? Always remember your step page. Which property you want to nullify? Take any one of the properties that you selected. Just for example, I'm saying that take any one of the properties that you selected. Maybe I want to nullify my hotel name. So this property will no longer appear on the available hotels page on the clipboard. I told you the business requirement, right? Sometimes you make a selection, you change the selection, you want to nullify it or something like that. Let's say, for example, you thought that this person has some reservation, maybe some handicap or something. You gave him the reservation. Later, based on your criteria, for this person, this reservation is not applicable. So you want to nullify it or remove that reservation. So use property remove. Okay? Save your code, execute. Go to the clipboard, you will not find the value anymore, hotel name anymore. Okay? You see only two properties available. Third one is not available. Why is error coming? It will come because you have all the 6 or 7 steps still executing. So every time you execute, the error step will come. Okay? That's property remove. So property set messages is a task for you to identify. Let's say I'm done with my work in this activity. Okay? I want to delete my page. So why should I delete a page? Deallocation of memory. So if like I feel like I created a page called as available hotels, I have some data which is equal to 1 MB, just for example. So 10,000 users logged in. 10,000 people are trying to book hotels. So 10,000 MB is it getting wasted just because of a page called as available hotels. So if you always consume the memory like this, end of the day you will run short of memory and someday your server will come down. So you should always deallocate the memory for the pages once you're done with your work. So I thought like, yeah, I'm done with this page. I don't require this page anymore. Please make sure that you delete the pages. And remember, you need not delete the page in the same activity. A page which is created in this activity can be deleted in any of your child activities or your parent activities also. Okay? So when you created the page here, your child, your grandchild, everybody is using it. Once everybody is done with usage, delete it in the last activity that you want where you think it's no more used. Okay? So just give a method called as page remove and you can give the name of the page that you want to delete. And if you expand it, you can give more page names. So you can delete multiple pages at a time. Save and run and see the clipboard. You will no longer find this page on the clipboard. Okay? Done? Okay. So today you learned some property and page methods. You learned about page new, page set messages, page remove. Similarly, we learned about property set, property remove, and property set messages is a task for you. Okay. So tomorrow we'll learn about various database methods and few other most frequently used methods in Pega. Okay. So tomorrow we are going to learn like we have different types of tables in Pega, right? Like block tables and normally RDBA tables. So we learn how to retrieve data from blocks and how to retrieve data from the normal RDB tables. Okay. So just try to go through PDN on activities. I hope you're going to the course site, CSA. So please start going to the videos of activities. Okay. So that's it for today, guys. See you tomorrow. Thank you so much.